There seems to be never a good time to record these podcasts. I've recorded maybe 3 or 4 podcasts that I just haven't put in the feed. And if you hear the gentle sound of sleigh bells, it's in fact our cat's bells. We have 4 cats, one of them is blind, so the other 3 cats have bells of various descriptions so the blind cat can identify which cat is coming towards him. I had a memory come back to me, and it was a memory of being at the Leicester YMCA in 2001. I moved to the US from the end of 1999, and I ended up in the UK in 2001. And I ended up in the UK based on a very curious legal dispute with the backer that had originally sent me to the US from Australia, and a wide variety of folk that I knew in the US who, all of the above, really were looking to exploit me in one way or another. But the nonsense that came together through this, rather than just getting a normal job in the US, which almost everyone else I knew who lived here through that period of time were able to do, resulted in me being in the Leicester YMCA. Now, Leicester is a city about 2 hours north of London, 2 hours by train, maybe an hour and a half. It's not really the centre of the universe, but the Leicester YMCA was like medieval torture. Quite literally, it was really extraordinary. It was basically a place where deportees and borderline homeless people lived. And the deportee portion of it was really very harrowing because the deportees would do things like, beat up their wives and things like that, which you'd hear at, 11 at night or what have you. And the whole nature of being around so many people that were clearly on the edge of survival, and also the fleas. I mean, basically the fleas ate through my feet, have large scarring on based on my time at the Leicester YMCA. But the reason that the Leicester YMCA came back to me today is that I have some clothes in the washing machine. I'm recording downstairs. I think I've probably already said that based on the cat sounds. And I have 8 minutes left on the washing. And as I was coming back in, I was thinking of the So Solid Crew, which was what they called garage, which was a kind of music in the UK. It was really kind of rap over a dance beat, but the rap was a little curious. The whole British garage rap sound was very different. So they had this song called 29 Seconds, So Solid Crew. It was, I think, 8 different rappers, including maybe 1 or 2 female rappers, and they did 29 seconds of rap each in the song. So as I was coming in with 8 minutes to record a podcast, I thought, 29 seconds to go. It was a time in my life. Perhaps also the reason that I raised this is there seem to be a number of things that are kind of coming together, or an end, or a transition, or just a forcing function at the end of this year. And a number of them I really can't talk about. Some of them relate to my family. Some of them relate to projects that I've never put out in the public for a variety of reasons. So if folks wonder how productive I am with regards to just what I discuss in these podcasts, there's a bunch of other stuff too. So through this, I've come to an analysis associated with mental health, and it goes a little something like this. Up until this point in my life, but really the early parts of my life, the stuff that led up to me being in the US before I ended up at the Leicester YMCA, I did things which were so outside the view of normalcy. So, for example, when I was in Australia, I was producing music and software. So when people would meet me, they'd ask me what I do, and I mean, I was a university student at the time as well, but I said, look, I'm a new media producer, which was what I did. I put out 2 CDs worth of new media, new music while I was in Australia in the last 2, maybe 3 years that I was in Australia. So at the same time, I realized that there was a culture of folks that didn't really do anything but said that they did that stuff. So when people looked at me and I said what I did, they immediately thought, oh, well, clearly he's not on the up and up. When in fact, the work that I did through that period of time got me to the US, although it also got me to the Leicester YMCA. And I've reflected that just by doing the stuff that I do, people that come into contact with me aren't always on the level. They're not always on the up and up. But also, sometimes they're just like fantasists that have their own narrative that has gone along with it. And I've started to realize, particularly as things went down for me, I mean, obviously the nonsense that's happened in the past 3 years pretty well catalogued in these recordings, that I've had very few allies. Not just very few allies, but very few people who I've done a lot of work with in the past, who, for them, quite literally, when I've come back with an actual issue to raise with them, they are in no capacity to deal with it because it's not, they're not relating to me on that level. We're not friends, right? We're occasional collaborators when really I just take a a good portion of the work and they get to do what they get to do. So in coming to this realization, I'm starting to wonder if the choice to remove myself from this stuff is always the choice that is there. And increasingly, I'm just removing myself from a lot of this stuff and returning to my own work. And in parallel to this, I'm very well aware that the end of the year is also forcing functions with regards to low light depression and a bunch of other things. But I do realize the kind of cleanup that one does at the end of the year is as much a metaphysical cleanup as it is a physical cleanup. So where does this put me? Well, I have goals with regards to next year that I'm trying to make as independent of others as possible, which is genuinely difficult. I've talked a little bit candidly associated with the Ape SDK and the work that I'd like Bob Mottram to do, but that is currently requiring another entity. And this other entity is now talking about doing something completely different than they've done historically. Which in the short term is interesting because it means that a chunk of change that I used to give to this thing is not going to this thing anymore because the thing doesn't exist. So, I mean, historically, it kind of transitioned maybe 2 years ago into not existing in any real sense. Now, literally, the whole thing is being renamed, so my charitable donations that go out every, period can't go to the previous one, and I don't think we'll be able to go to the new one. So it's actually a really meaningful break. In parallel to this, obviously, $20,000 to create whatever it's called, the Simulated Ape Foundation. No, I don't know what it's called. Anyway, that seems to me to be money poorly spent at this stage. But stay tuned. My views might change. In parallel to this as well, due to a bunch of other stuff that has not been going in this podcast, I will be down in LA for good portions of next year. My hope is I'll be down in LA for good portions of next year. Practically, it hasn't been that way this year. It was supposed to happen this year, hasn't. So next year, I hope to be down in LA for some portions of next year. And what that means to this very particular recording is either I take recording equipment with me and do it down in LA, or I reduce the number of podcasts that I actually do. And practically that means a reduction in model rail radios, but also it means that Long Funk and My Rules Are Better probably take a bit of a cut as well. I'm going to talk a little bit more in the My Rules Are Better recording associated with what my plans are for that recording, but my hope is that I can transition that into more of a video podcast, or at least me creating rules in video form rather than audio form, and then doing the standard audio discussion pieces with other participants that I've done up until this point. But yes, this is really an interesting transitional time, and in parallel to this, all the usual end-of-the-year related nonsense is going on as well. But I think I've probably distilled some of my thinking, and yes, I did turn the alarm off associated with the washing. I've been able to do it in a slightly less constrained format than the Soul Solid crew 20-odd years ago. What's particularly curious is that musical movement garage represented itself in People Just Do Nothing, which is a comedy series on the BBC, which has since wrapped up. And People Just Do Nothing got me to the RAF Museum in London. So these stepping stones are somewhat curiously linked, as these things tend to be linked when one thinks about them. Synchronicities is the word.